Let's talk about escalation. You probably, if you have read the book, if you've done enough so that you've gotten well into the book, you know that one of the recommendations I always make is to ask 5 times when you're getting wrong information. Let's just review. You want to escalate things anytime you're getting wrong information. When you're told something that you know isn't true, you need to escalate that. And the first step in escalation is to ask 5 times. And honestly, as illogical, irrational, as frustrating as that can be, it's my experience, and I have done hundreds of loan modifications, more than you have, so I know what I'm talking about. It's really a very good practice. So here's how it goes. Listen up. When you run into a roadblock, you're told information that is incorrect, and you can't get the agent to understand you or to appreciate what you're saying or to agree with you, it's my recommendation that you quit and ask 5 times. That's the first step in escalation. Call back. Call back that afternoon. Call back the next morning, the next afternoon. I usually wait until the next, if it's morning, I wait till afternoon. If it's afternoon, I wait till the next day. So I don't just dial back, even though the chances of getting that same agent are zip. The reason I don't like to call right back is because I have done that, actually. And they'll say, well, now, gosh, there's an entry here just, 8 minutes ago made by Arnie, and he said that you said, and you said that he said, and now you're telling me. So you don't know for sure if these people are entering and making notes into your onto your file. Certainly the people at Bank of America are, because these guys are going crazy overboard with their systems and processes and disciplines. Actually, I hate to say it, but they're actually getting quite good. But I really recommend that you ask 5 times. Ask 5 different people. And if you still can't get an answer to your problem, reconciliation, if you still can't get an agreement, if you still can't get past the roadblock, escalate it to a supervisor. And I always say you need to escalate well. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Think about how differently you would feel if I said to you, put your boss on the line. I want to talk to your boss. Is your manager in the office right now? Or give me the name of your manager. That just elicits all kinds of, it elicits a chemical reaction, doesn't it? Because what it's really saying is, hey, dumbass, put someone on the phone who's got a brain. Or it says, you are way beneath me. I want to talk to somebody at my own level. So it's really condescending. But if you say it in a different way, you can avoid that, because any person with any kind of self-image is going to, thwart your efforts. If you insulted me like that, I would be sure to tell you that the manager is not available for buttheads like you. Or I would say the manager calls back buttheads like you. Let me, take your number down, and I'll, be sure to pass that very important message along. So I'd find some way to interrupt you. Or here's another one that I know this happens. Sure, just 1 second, I'll put you on hold. Put you on hold, and they say, hey, Jimmy, be my manager, will ya? This guy wants to complain. Sure. And then he gets on and says, hi, this is the manager. And he gives you no better information. Or another one that I know happens, because I've actually done this one myself, is you say to your manager, Edna, this complete jerk just will not accept what I've told him, and I've read to him exactly from the notes like you told me to. And then Edna gets on the line, and she's defensive because you've offended, and she's got to show that she's got enough nerve to support her employee. So you have to escalate well, okay? So by escalating well, I mean using tact, using diplomacy, and use a little touch of humility. The approach I always take is, listen, Sheila, I understand what you're saying, and you and I don't seem to be able to see eye to eye on this. So, but this is just so important. It's my house. My family's counting on me to figure out a way to enable us to stay in this house. I just have to ask if there's any way you could ask your manager to talk to me about this. I don't mean to offend you. I don't mean to, I don't mean to in any way insult you. So you eat humble pie a little bit. But get their manager on the phone that way, with defenses down, and the manager realizing that you realize what you've asked for, and it works about half the time. And about half of that time, so about 25% of the time, you get better answers from a manager. But then what I want you to do is escalate well beyond. And here's what I mean by that. I have gotten to be quite a fan of escalating well beyond the loss mitigation department. And here's the best practice that I've developed with regards to escalating well beyond. If you think about it, your escalation needs to be able to go to people who can apply pressure to the loss mitigation supervisor, the person who supervises the negotiator who has put this stumbling block in your way, like giving you a rejection on your HAMP permanent modification. So you want to, the only person who can put pressure on that person is either the vice president in charge of the loss mitigation department, or someone above him in that or her in that division, or actually the CEO of the company. And so what I do in terms of escalating internally is I will write to, if I can get the name of, I will write to the manager of the negotiator, and that's sometimes effective. But what I have found to be quite effective recently, and I've done this on half a dozen occasions over the last month, is actually write to the CEO. And here's how I do it. I write to the CEO on behalf of the client. So you would author a letter to the CEO. You make sure it gets into the hands of the CEO by calling headquarters and asking how you get a fax message into the hands of the CEO. Get the name, and be sure that you get it at executive offices. Be sure it's the right area code for the city in which the executive offices are. And write a very simple fax that asks very specifically for some reasonable action. Here's the key. The key is you need to express to the CEO that you have run into a roadblock, that you don't blame the people in his organization, but they're overworked and underpaid, and you don't know what the problem is, but here's what you would ask them to do. And then state it in one sentence what you want them to do, and ask for something that they absolutely would be totally embarrassed and humiliated if it was leaked to the press, that they wouldn't even do that for you. So I always make it one sentence, I make it bold, and I put it in the middle of the letter. And it goes just like, would you please ask your loss mitigation department to review my file for reinstatement under the HAMP program. Okay, so that question is real clear. And the reason I do that is because of, just like I said, if this letter also went to the local press and that CEO was unwilling to even take that action for you, that's pretty laughable. And then I would never let even a week go by without a follow-up. So maybe 4 or 5 days later, follow up with the same CEO. And here's another trick that I use. I always send that letter to the CEO, and I also always send it to the legal department and send it to the loss mitigation department, including the negotiator themselves. Because you want to give them a heads up that that's what you've done. Not that you need to explain to them that that's what you're doing. They just need to have a copy of it. Because sometimes I think it's just the fact that they see that you're going to go to the CEO, and they just could get a call from the CEO, not the CEO himself, obviously, or herself. Won't happen. But obviously, if they're going to get some pressure and have to answer for how they've handled this account, they're going to double check to make sure that they handled it correctly, because they mishandle lots of accounts. Okay, so that's the proper method for escalating well within the organization. But there's more to escalating well beyond. I also have gotten to be quite a fan of escalating to local Congress people and senators. Senators not so much, although we actually have had success with Senator Boxer in California, actually helping someone. Whoa. But we've had crazy good success with the local offices of local Congress people. it turns out, they're kind of inundated with requests, and it seems like most of them have 25 to 250 requests for assistance at all times on their desk. And they have a regular procedure all mapped out for what they can do for you, and sometimes it really does help. So you have to contact them, explain your situation, and fill out a form that authorizes them to act on your behalf with the regulatory agencies. And then what they do is they send off a letter from the congressperson, or a note from the congressperson, to the regulatory agency, whether it's the comptroller of the currency, or the Office of Thrift Supervision, or the FDIC, or the Feds, or HUD, or Fannie Mae, whoever they decide can be most helpful. They send off a letter on your behalf. And there is a regular process, and of course politicians, they have to cover their tracks. So there's a well-established policy and procedure for how to help you. And honestly, we've had good success with getting action based on this kind of escalation. So, got a little long-winded there, but I want to be sure that you understand that you have to escalate well, and that you have to escalate well beyond just the loss mitigation department. It's becoming more and more important because rejections are getting common, even for qualified applicants. Like I said, 50% of our qualified applicants are getting rejected. So we fight to get them back in, and escalation is the way we do it.